Thanks to everybody for joining us. I'm Alexandra. I lead marketing here at Nousot. We're thrilled that you can join us for our post-Data and AI Summit Roundtable today. Our speakers from Databricks and Nousot will break down some of the top announcements from Summit, including AI BI, open sourcing of Unity Catalog, LakeFlow, and more. They'll cover why these are significant for tech leaders and practical ways to get started. Before we kick off the discussion, just a few quick reminders. Again, we're recording. You're welcome to turn off your video if you don't want to be included, and we will send out that replay after today's session. We'll do Q&A at the end, but feel free to use the chat at any time to share questions as you have them during the discussion. At this point, I will hand it off to Jay Goebel, who will be our moderator for today. He leads our alliances practice here at Nousot. Take it away, Jay.
Thanks, Alexandra. So yeah, hey everybody, my name is Jay Goebel. As Alexandra said, I'll be your moderator today, and my role here at Nousot is our VP of Alliances. A little background on myself. My career, which spans about 20 years at this point, has been entirely focused on data analytics in a variety of different roles. In my current role, leading the Alliances group here at Nousot, my focus is really on a couple things. First, continually growing our strategic partnership with Databricks. And secondly, just making sure that Nousot is always positioned to deliver those top-tier services to our customers using the Databricks platform. Hand it over to Jeff.
Thanks, Jay. So I'm Jeff Lipkowitz. I'm a partner solution architect with Databricks out of Chicago. Prior to joining Databricks, I also spent my entire career in data and AI on the other side as a consultant. And now I get to work with partners and help them with everything from training and enablement and technically related to help build their go-to-market. So really excited to be here for the webinar.
Great. Alex?
Yep. Thanks, Jay. I'm Alex Wiss. I'm a solution architect at Nousot. In addition to just having recently gotten my Databricks Solution Architect Champion certification, I lead the Nousot Labs group, which is focused on research and development. So we built kind of a handful of things in partnership with Databricks, including migration accelerators and brick builders and things like that. But predominantly, my day-to-day role is just kind of helping our clients to get the most out of the Databricks platform, whether that's kind of helping them with architecture or helping to deliver kind of business use cases, engineering use cases on the platform. So excited to talk today.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds great. Thanks for the intros there, guys. I realize there might be a couple folks on the line that may not be familiar with Nousot. So before we get into the meat of the content, let me take a minute or two just to give everybody a background on who we are and what we do. So Nousot is we're an end-to-end data analytics services company. We're based in Chicago, and as I mentioned before, we are a dedicated partner with Databricks. So when I say end-to-end, really that means that we provide services that range everywhere from helping organizations define their data and AI strategy, helping them build out analytics roadmap, things of that nature, to then helping them to actually modernize to the Databricks platform, kind of using a set of pre-built solutions that we have combined with our services to stand up the Databricks foundation and maybe migrate from legacy platforms over to Databricks. And then we get into the real fun stuff, which is, those analytic solutions that really move the financial needle for our customers. So that's, that can be things like optimizing supply chain and inventory management, maybe helping e-commerce companies create personalized experiences for their customers, or maybe working with energy and utility companies to prevent and mitigate wildfires. So that's really, what we're passionate about is helping organizations really leverage the power of Databricks to drive outcomes for their organization. So that's the background on Nousot. With that said, Alex, Jeff, you guys ready to get into it?
Let's do it.
Awesome. So let's see, it's 1st of August, so we're about a month and a half or so down the road from when we met up in San Francisco for the Data and AI Summit. And as everybody knows, there were a ton of awesome announcements that came out during that summit. We're obviously not going to cover all three of them. Like Alexandra mentioned when she opened the call, we're gonna touch on three specific ones today, which is the introduction of AI BI, Unity Catalog going open source, and then the introduction of LakeFlow. So we're not going to, just kind of give a recap of the announcements, although that will be part of it. What we really want to get into today is how are these announcements particularly impactful for technical leaders in organizations? Like, why are these important to them? How can they actually use them to influence change in their organization? So let's go ahead and jump in. We'll start with AI BI. So before we get too far into that, I want to reiterate Databricks' mission, which is to democratize data and AI for everyone. And I think AI BI fits into that perfectly because it combines artificial intelligence with business intelligence to empower business users to perform self-service analytics more efficiently. Obviously, all of this is governed and secured with Unity Catalog, like everything in Databricks. There are two components to AI BI dashboards, which are generally available. That allows users to create visualizations and dashboards using a low-code experience and a drag-and-drop interface or natural language processing. But it really makes data analysis more accessible for the non-technical users. And then the other aspect of it is Genie, which is currently in public preview. That offers a conversational interface that allows business users to interact with their data using natural language queries and receive visualizations in response.
Totally. I think what's interesting about Genie, it really opens up the gates in the sense that you have an entire application that is sitting on top of the Lakehouse where users can just talk to in order to get better understanding of their data. For example, let's say we're talking about, I uploaded the famous New York City taxi data sets to the Lakehouse just to kind of play around with it. Typically this is hard for people in the sense that normally you'd have to know how to work with the data, how to do SQL. But let's say you take all the technical underpinning behind it and you have an idea of what you're looking for. Now you could just type to the data, say, okay, give me the top trips by X location. It will spit out a graph. And it's like, okay, well, this is interesting. But what for these locations, what are the types of fares that people are paying for? Are they paying with credit cards? Are they paying for cash? And then you could say, okay, well, give me the largest duration of trips by the different locations. So now you very easily have created a story, created the underlying code to do it. And it becomes less about the underpinning of working with the data, massaging the data, and more about what you can think of in order to drive insights of the data. So this is highly disruptive in the sense that typically if we were to look at the early days of BI, if we would rewind 20 years, there was a lot of energy that went into getting the data from IT to the business. Now we have an entire interface where the business can plug in and start working with the data in order to get what they want. So this goes back into Databricks' mission is to democratize data and AI. So
on that note, Jeff, Databricks is not the first to introduce Gen AI into the BI and self-service landscape. What makes them different? What makes AI BI different?
Yeah, totally. So you're 100% correct, right? So BI with natural language built in is not a new concept, right? It's existed for years. Typically, the solution that would happen is they would have language packs that would be an addendum to the business intelligence, and it would take whatever you put in and do its best to produce a report. What's different here is one, how the Lakehouse is set up. It really is trying to unify everything that you're using on the platform. So the queries that you're running, the notebooks that you're using, the tables, the tags, the popularity of the underlying asset, and it's all built on the intelligence data platform. So the entire platform is infused with generative AI, and the models that we're using in order to produce the report is using large language models. So this idea that we're looking at everything holistically, it's governed under Unity Catalog, it's constantly getting more intelligent based on what the user's feedback is, and the fact that we're using models that are much larger than previously were done before, right? Previously, these language packs were smaller models, less than 1 billion. Now we have models that are 400 billion parameters and above, and it's constantly changing. So this is highly disruptive because before you would type something in, you'd kind of get what you want. Now you can type it in, and it becomes less around the finagling of the language, but more around knowing your data and being able to type something in and get the right result. For example, we used to kind of give a demo on this, like we'd ask the question, how is the Nephos projects doing? That is referred to an internal keyword around serverless, and it would intelligently know what that word was and then find the underlying reports associated with it. So it's less around making things perfect, but contextually understanding the big picture and working with that data to produce an output.
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing is, it actually, you can communicate with it in the context of your organization. So it's not a generic LLM, but you can actually use words and phrases that are specific to your business and get results in return.
Yeah, 100%. There's this idea of, producing data as products, tagging it. The more that you put into Unity Catalog and the more you are working with it to organize and structure your underlying data and build those building blocks, the easier it is, one, for contextually to understand everything, and then produce the right outputs for your business.
Yep. Yeah, great. Thanks, Jeff. Hey, Alex, let me pivot over to you. What challenges do you see companies facing when they're implementing BI, and how do they traditionally overcome them?
Yeah, I'd say the first one, and it seems like something that should be something that we've solved by now. But the first one is just access and availability to data, right? And you kind of see the age-old consolidation versus federation kind of debate that goes along with that as well, kind of across the industry and over time. And I think that's something that Databricks has really began to kind of accelerate, right? Between the Lakehouse architecture, the ability to get data in, some of the Lakehouse Federation that has come recently, and we'll talk about LakeFlow and LakeFlow Connect later. I think just the ability to get data into that centralized platform and make it available for BI and to appropriately tag things with the Unity catalog really helps to accelerate and build that core foundation for a BI across the organization. So kind of helping to accelerate there. I think the second major one is just having that agreement between the business and the data teams, right? And having the agreement of how data is going to be presented and exactly what data is needed. I think one of the major corollaries there is just making sure that within your organization you have tools that can be used by the different personas, right? So data scientists versus a data analyst versus more of a business-facing user are going to want different tools, and they want to interact with data in different ways. And I think that to me is where some of the recent developments, specifically kind of AI, BI, and Genie, start to build some really exciting momentum around kind of serving a larger audience and starting, and Jeff really touched on it earlier, right? Starting to potentially serve personas that, weren't necessarily as well served at Databricks previously, but maybe just weren't well served within the organization in general previously, and starting to allow them to access data that they previously didn't use.
Yeah, no, agreed. Goes back to the mission of democratizing data and AI for everyone. No, that was great. So maybe Jeff, I'll go back to you just to kind of close out AI BI here. So it's obviously still fairly early, but have you seen can you speak to any real world examples where AI BI has provided some significant competitive advantages where we're actually seeing it in the marketplace so far?
Yeah, totally. I mean, we have a lot of great examples, anywhere from like Sega to T-Mobile to Vattenfall.
have used this, AI BI to do exactly what we're talking about, right? Typically, Databricks is focused on the 20% of hardcore users that know SQL, Python, but this is a game changer. One example that we've seen in Benton Falls, they made AI and Genie available to key stakeholders. And what they found is that these key stakeholders no longer needed to work with their analysts in order to get the data. So, before the analyst was sort of the person that would gather requirements, build the reports, but now you cut that out. So what it happens is, your key stakeholders have faster information to the data, have ease of use. And what that means is, faster speed to market and truly becoming a data focused and driven company. So it's a big deal.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just to touch on that, I mean, I think data democratization is something that's been kind of a growing trend just within the analytics space over the years, right? Instead of centralizing these data teams within the organization, as Jeff, as you mentioned, having analysts and maybe citizen engineers start to kind of push out to the business teams themselves. But a lot of times what they were doing was just like you said, they're analysts, they're answering ad hoc questions for kind of the business leaders of those teams. Now, I think what you see is the ability to really streamline that operation, and those people that have been pushed out to the business teams can actually focus on kind of building data products and adding this more exponential value instead of just answering day-to-day questions, because the business leads can do that themselves. So I think you're really going to see that exponential takeoff of the value of democratizing data within organizations start to come to play here.
Totally. And I think cross-pollination too, right? So one of the things that we saw in T-Mobile is users were able to get intuitive responses. And with that, they were able to incorporate domain knowledge through text-based instructions. So let's say you're in one particular domain, but you don't necessarily know the information about that particular domain. The reports might be there, but the ability to ask questions on the data creates a whole nother avenue to get intuitive responses around what you're trying to achieve. You don't have to have an analyst or someone point you to it. You can use your own sort of speech just to interact with the data in a very visceral effect. So,
yeah, no, absolutely. I think the bottom line here is AI BI is certainly a game changer when it comes to kind of putting more control in the hands of the business, kind of proliferating that self-service mentality throughout the organization. No longer a need to wait on people to produce those inputs for you. Totally democratizes AI, like we've said a few times.
Totally.
Hey, let's switch over to our second announcement. So, Unity Catalog going open source. So, I think we all know that governance is a core challenge across both AI and BI, and that's especially true as enterprises seek to expand their Gen AI capabilities while ensuring that proper security and governance and compliance regulations are in place. So, as we all know, UC is a unified data governance solution that provides that centralized governance for both data and AI assets. As I mentioned, it was open sourced at Summit this June, which now makes it the industry's only universal catalog of data and AI. So it's able to govern tables, unstructured data, and AI together. It is open sourced under the Apache 2 license, and it includes Iceberg REST API through Uniform to support any Iceberg or Delta client. So jumping right in, Jeff, what is the significance of UC going open source for tech leaders?
Well, I think it's a big deal, right? So when you look at Unity Catalog, we were, from a Databricks perspective, we were first to market to have this unified governance solution. We're also first to market to open source it. And I think it's important because now, let's say you're a decision maker and you're looking to move on to Databricks and move on to Unity Catalog, you know that it's portable, right? When we're really focused on making sure that the solution is the best price performance and that it has the best adoption. We hit it out of the park with LakeFlow, Delta, and Spark. Now Unity Catalog is open source, so there's an entire community of developers who are going to start contributing to this. So it's good in the sense that now you avoid that it's locked into the platform, and that there's an entire community that is looking to adopt that. So yeah.
No, absolutely. No, that's great. Are you, maybe sticking with you for a minute, Jeff, can you speak to let's talk about some of the immediate benefits and the longer term benefits for organizations that adopt open source UC?
Yeah, so I think the immediate benefits are really on interpretability and integration. Companies that are pulling that repo and looking to build it into their platform will have tighter integration. That also means the more people that are on Unity Catalog, the more ability that you have to connect to foreign catalogs, and the more assets that exist within the data estate means more governance and security. And then it means enhanced search. So the data that you put into the lakehouse is more usable. It just doesn't become, for lack of a better term, dark data. And then it's also cost effective and flexible, right? You're not locked into one vendor. I think long term, the conversation is going to be, how is the community going to use this, right? You kind of released it into the open, and it's really up to the community to define, okay, what are the standards? Where do we want to take this? And what are, how are we going to push the bar when it comes to making this project the best in a open source unified catalog? So I think the future is relatively driven, but I think the starting place is incredible in the fact that Unity Catalog can govern everything from tables to ML models, track the lineage, and then have the ability to connect to foreign databases using Federation. And then in terms of community collaboration and broad support, there are a lot of partners that are already jumping onto the bandwagon. So, there was a slide that was shared in Summit. There's everyone, from Microsoft, AWS, Google, Salesforce, who's, part of the partners. I'll read a quote from Jessica Hawk, who's the CVP of Data, AI, and Digital Applications from Microsoft. She said, Microsoft is committed to open source community, empowering customers with choice. Databricks has been a strategic partner for years, and it's great to see an open sourcing Unity Catalog. We believe a truly open standard with a broad industry perspective are in the customer's best interest. Our collaboration with Databricks continues to elevate Microsoft Azure as the best choice for data and AI workloads.
Yeah, I know, absolutely. That's a great quote. And I think kind of on the topic of being in the customer's best interest, another benefit that I see is just improved trust, by open sourcing it and kind of having that transparency where you just can actually get in there and inspect and understand and, if necessary, modify the code. That gives a lot of people the, better appreciation for what's actually happening and the trust that it's going to do well by their organization.
Totally.
Hey, Alex, let's pivot over to you. How do you expect the ecosystem to evolve now that UC is open source?
Yeah, I think that's the really exciting part about the open sourcing for me, right, is the ability for community contribution. So, when we talk about a data catalog and just a catalog in general, what you want to see is just the ability of things that it can catalog, right? So the Unity Catalog kind of within Databricks started with, kind of a great, kind of going across workspaces in Databricks, starting to incorporate things like, LLMs, models, all of those assets. Now with the community able to kind of contribute and really own and drive this thing, what I'm looking to see is, what other assets can start to be contributed, what other assets can start to be cataloged and really included as part of, not only that catalog, but potentially that governance model, right? So, Jeff, you started to mention kind of some of the partners that are coming on board and potentially Azure, right? Maybe we start to see, some other parts of the Azure stack start to pop up in there. Maybe we start to see other reporting and downstream tools pop up. Maybe we start to see some of the the operational systems start to pop up, so you can actually do some of that lineage as well as data quality tracking all the way back to the source and all the way down to your reporting and downstream system. So that's what I'm excited to see. That's what I'm hoping that the community starts to drive. It is really, kind of when somebody kind of they have a tool that they use and they want to see it start to pop up in their catalog. All right, let's get that sucker contributed, right, and let's get that accepted by the maintainers.
Awesome. Alex, let's stay with you. Can you maybe think about, we got UC open source now. Let's kind of talk about some of the potential risks and benefits of using open source UC compared to some of those proprietary solutions that are out there.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with the risks. I think when using open source software, there's always kind of this perceived risk of, anybody can contribute to it. And so there may be, potentially bugs or even vulnerabilities or a lack of support. But to me, that's actually greatly outweighed by the fact that anybody can contribute to it. And we mentioned kind of that community contribution, but also just the community support. If you look at open source projects, just across the technology landscape, the amount of resources, documentation that you have access to when you kind of are looking for answers around a problem using that technology, or you're looking for just explanations of how it works, or how do I solve this problem with this technology. The community support and the open source nature of it means that there's so many more resources available to you. And Jay, I think you mentioned it earlier. If you can't figure something out, you can just go dig through the code, right? I think we've all been at as engineers, we've probably all been at the mercy of working with a proprietary solution and going and looking at the documentation and just not being able to figure out how to do something. And you submit a support ticket and you wait for them to get back to you, and maybe it gets solved and maybe it doesn't. I think this really kind of puts the ability to be a little bit more self-sufficient and to figure out how those things work in the company's hands. And I think that goes for kind of the last thing I'll mention for open source, which is just the ability to contribute. I think the ability to actually kind of contribute something back to the open source community and really drive the direction in which the tool you use goes is underrated these days, right? If you're working with a proprietary technology and you're anything but one of their largest customers, you're probably not affecting the roadmap. They're probably not going to put in a feature just for you. But with the open source community, you can go put in a feature request. You can kind of, if other people are interested in it as well, it'll get uploaded. You can even contribute it yourself. If you have the time and resources within your organization or in your free time, I think that's a huge benefit. The Apache licensing there, and I believe the contribution back to the Linux Foundation, right? Open source community is really going to help out there.
Great answer. Agreed. Alex, why don't you close us out on UC by talking about some of the best practices for getting the most value out of Uni Catalog? How can organizations start and get the best peace of mind?
Yeah, I mean, the first and best thing you can do is just start to use it. I think
always a starting point.
Yeah, the way that things have been kind of, especially within the Databricks platform, right? The way that things have just kind of been naturally integrated is huge, right? The fact that kind of all the permissions are automatically on. You automatically start to get that lineage within the Databricks platform, everything from, kind of tables and views to notebooks, workflows, all of that is just on by default. So as soon as you start getting your tables into Unity Catalog, you get all of that, which I think is huge. The next is to kind of start to use that unified permissions model. So expanding your RBAC model and eventually, hopefully, your ABAC model, which I'm really excited about, although we haven't mentioned that yet. Your RBAC model, not just to your kind of tables and views, but also now again to models, potentially access to LLMs as we start to democratize Gen AI within the organization. Really start to apply that permissions model and that governance model to all of your assets is something that's kind of massively impactful. And then starting to fill out the catalog as well is to kind of the next best practice, right? The Unity catalog, again, has a lot of that built in. And you can really drive a lot more value and discoverability and democratization of data, and it'll help out with kind of some of the tools we talked about with the AI BI and Genie as well. Is that just start to fill out the kind of descriptions of tables, right? And the metadata and tags associated with that information. Again, this is something Databricks makes really easy by just, you can go in, it's already got like a kind of a pre-populated AI response. You go in, kind of tweak that if you need to, and just select accept, and you're already kind of going. So I think getting that catalog populated is the next best thing you can do after kind of turning it on and starting to establish the governance rules.
Yeah, exactly. Just use it, start putting things in there. Agreed.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. I think we'll keep moving on here. We'll get into our third and final announcement from Summit, which is around LakeFlow. So I think there's a perception out there that everything creating these, using data to drive decision processes, it really just starts with the data, right? But it doesn't. It starts with having good data. How do we actually get good data? Traditionally, that requires several steps. You got to go through your typical ingestion, transformation, and orchestration process. Ingestion, you're looking at tools like maybe Airbyte or Debezium. Transformation, you've got DBT or a suite of other services there. And orchestration, things like Airflow, CloudWatch, and others. And the point here being that it's a lot of tools, a lot of vendors, a lot of handoff, a lot of complexity. So that's what LakeFlow is intended to address. So it's really intended to be one data engineering solution powered by data intelligence on the Databricks platform. So that being said, Jeff, let's jump into it on your side. Maybe let's think about this one a little bit differently. Maybe can you talk about the context or what the significance of LakeFlow for business leaders, and then we'll follow that up with technical leaders later on.
Yeah, sure. So what's awesome about LakeFlow is the ability that it can handle both batch and a real-time data processing for low latency streaming to ensure that when you're running your business, you have timely access to accurate information for decision making. The other thing too is it's cost efficient, and then it manages the resources. It's all based on serverless compute. So the resources are there when you need it. It's intelligent, so it reduces operational overhead, and then allows for more efficient resource allocation. It can scale up, it can scale down, and then it's scalable and flexible data infrastructure. So LakeFlow's scalability, adaptability, it can evolve to your business needs, and it's designed to be future-proof in the sense that it's it can work with multiple use cases. It can scale up, and it's using serverless, so the resources are there, and you're not overusing or underutilizing it. And this is, I say this lightly, but this is a big deal, right? For example, there was a solution when I was a consultant that I built. There was it was a structured streaming use case, but the problem was the tool. There is so much overhead associated with getting the resources started up that you were wasting resources just in startup and shutdown cost, because that the flow of data was so frequent. In this particular scenario, you're on serverless. You're paying for what you're using, and it's very easy for the end user. You just connect to the underlying data set, and then you're within a couple clicks, you have a simple UI, and then it's all consolidated on the same platform. So it goes back to what we were talking about with Unity Catalog. Now you have visualization of seeing the data coming in. You can see your data being transformed, and then you can see your data being consumed in the presentation layer. So if something happens, you have complete traceability and can easily exception handle and trace what's happening at the root of where the data is coming in.
Yeah, no, those are all good points. Another one that kind of jumps out to me from, again, looking at this through the lens of a business user is I think having this all centralized, providing advanced analytics capabilities on a unified platform all in one spot, it really opens up new doors to innovate quicker, right? And allows business leaders to explore new markets, kind of optimize processes without having to rely on a lot of the intricacies of getting all those other pieces in place to facilitate that, like we talked about earlier.
Yeah, no, totally. Let me just kind of read off a list of kind of the connections that we're offering, right? These are in various states, in terms of private preview to GA, but we're going to have everything for connectors from, MySQL, Workday, Salesforce, Google Analytics, Oracle, Meta, ServiceNow, Netezza, Oracle, Dynamics 365. Every single one of these connectors. Before working with the Lakehouse, you might have had to work with before LakeFlow, you might have had to work with one of the hyperscalers tools in order to get it in, or you might have had to work with a third party. You might have had multiple tools within your data state in order to get it in, all with different trade-offs. Here, we're providing a tool that's directly built into the Lakehouse. Just a couple clicks, you're set up, and it can ingest the data. We're also building 3 different products to transform and orchestrate the data into one pipeline. So it's a big deal in the sense that we're making it easier to get the data into your Lakehouse and taking a lot of the thought out of it.
Yeah, and I think, it kind of ties back to a couple of things we talked about earlier when we talk about like the true business value of this, right? I mentioned that kind of one of the biggest challenges in BI is just data access and availability, right? And this is essentially, something that's targeted right at that. And when you combine something like LakeFlow Connect and a lot of the connectors you mentioned, Jeff, a business user could potentially have the ability to go hook up Google Analytics, get that ingested into Databricks, and then fire up a AI/BI Genie space and start asking questions about their weblog data in a matter of minutes, right? I mean, that is something that, Jay, when you talk about just the ability to innovate and just the speed at which you can generate insights, when we kind of combine the entire power of this stack and some of these new announcements, I mean, I think, again, exponential value add is really what I keep coming back to as these things start to play together.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Great points, Alex. I think we kind of blended in some of the technical advantages in there, as well as kind of as we were talking through some of those business advantages. But Alex, anything else that you would layer on there from a sheer technical standpoint that this is going to introduce?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I can tell you, me personally and we at Nousot have built any number of different data ingestion solutions in general, but specifically on Databricks, right? It's kind of always this challenge of, okay, can I get away with JDBC connections and just connect directly to my source systems from Databricks and do I write a custom framework there in order to handle that? And if I do, how do I handle change data capture? Am I going to be able to get data in low enough latency? If not, okay, now I have to go procure another tool, and then which one do I go with? I mean, you're really taking a lot of that challenge out, right? And really starting to deliver on the, kind of that unified analytics platform promise, right? One of the reasons that we at Nousot really love Databricks and champion it over some of the kind of other potential competitors and data platforms in the space is really the breadth of functionality that it provides, and in kind of like that analytics capabilities, and this just continues to add to that within the same platform and build that unified platform. So it's something that's really exciting.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the money, right? Change data capture is hard, right? And then handling the duplicates, the latency, what happens if there's a failure. I mean, this just makes it easy to get the data in, right? It's point and click, automatic operations, and then it's consistent and reliable. And then it has the benefits that we just talked about on Unity Catalog, because it's now part of that consistent platform. So this comes out of our Archeon acquisition, And, this is one of the things that was, highly sought after, just the ability to get the data in and start working with it. So you can start focusing on democratizing your data, using and focus on that end later, and spending less time in the beginning trying to get it done. So.
Jeff, you mentioned Archeon. Are there any new features that we can expect kind of coming through the Archeon channel anytime soon?
Yeah, so I mean, we have a lot of different connectors that we're bringing online, and then there's additional components that Archeon is being tied into, right? So when we look at LakeFlows, there's sort of three different angles. There's the ingest, there's transform, which is largely around declarative DLT, and then the ability to do orchestration on top of the entire pipeline. So there's three different components right now. In ingest is sort of the primary thing that we're bringing online, but there's other components that will follow. But yeah, you're going to be able to use declarative transformation, SQL, and Python. It's going to be highly scalable and do incremental processing, and then as I said earlier, it's going to be able to handle batch and streaming. So it's a big deal.
Absolutely. Maybe last question, Alex, you can close us out here on LakeFlow. Maybe just give us the scenarios where you think LakeFlow is going to be the most beneficial within an organization. So, again, thinking from a technical leader standpoint, what's the most impactful scenarios?
Yeah, I mean, just, we kind of touched on it a little bit, but to put a finer point on it, right? Like, I think the opportunity probably to do some vendor consolidation is really big. I think that anytime you can kind of move data into one platform, or move kind of complexity into one platform, you're doing something good, especially if you can get feature parity, which we're looking to do. I think another is, we mentioned data democratization a lot, and it's something I come back to a lot. I think there's the ability to potentially give a larger number of people access to the ability to ingest data in a governed way. The integration with Unity Catalog that we're going to get from LakeFlow Connect, the integration with the Databricks platform in general. I mentioned the ability for potentially somebody in marketing to come in, kind of pull in Google Ads, and then start playing with GI, AI, BI, Genie Space, right? I think data scientists and that the kind of collaboration that the data science and the data engineering teams are now going to be able to have. Before, if you had a separate ingestion tool, you probably weren't giving that to your data science teams to do data wrangling, right? You might have had a separate wrangling tool, or maybe they were just using kind of Python and PySpark in order to connect. I think now there's the chance to cut down on that cycle by having the data science teams just, maybe have permission to go fire up a connection, and then, when they want to operationalize that connection, that LakeFlow Connect connection, they just, they push that over to the engineering team, and that gets promoted to the next environment. I think you're really talking about just collaboration between those teams on that platform, and just cutting down on that time to insights, right? Cutting down on that life cycle of delivering new analytics products.
No, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And it's, still, again, ties back to that democratizing data and ad for everyone. So let's see, I'm doing a quick time check here, guys, and we're coming up on about 15 minutes left, which I think is where we kind of wanted to be in, where we took some questions from the audience. So let me turn over to the audience, or Alexandra, if you're fielding any questions there. Let's see. I see there's a couple in the chat here, one in the chat.
Yeah, it looks like Elaine asked, how does open sourcing Unity Catalog change the competitive landscape between Unity Catalog and commercial catalog solutions like Calibra, Alation?
Jeff, you want to take that?
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic question. And it's funny, we talked a lot about the benefits of open sourcing, and what makes it unique in the sense that you can really define the roadmap. You have a lot of resources available because there's a lot of people working on the platform. The way I look at it, it really raises the bar. Other companies will want to become open source. And there's a vast number of partners that are looking to be part of this ecosystem. So what I see is you're having a changing landscape in the sense that Collabora and Atlassian are still the catalog of catalogs, but you are going to see in the future Unity catalog become closer to being more of a catalog of catalogs, because so much of that data will be in the Lakehouse.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. Let's see. We have one more here. I like this one. LakeFlow sounds very exciting. Could LakeFlow be the gateway drug to the Lakehouse in the future for organizations?
I certainly think so. I mean, previously you had a lot of different options out there. Now with LakeFlow, what you're going to see is a series of connectors that are going to be very quickly coming online, and you're going to be seeing a very easy way to get the data in a very reliable fashion. That's highly efficient, highly reliable, highly scalable, and then is connected to additional features in the platform. So the transformations, the ability to build workflows, and then all the benefits that you have on Unity Catalog, the ability to do monitoring on the data, you'll be able to get that. So this is a big deal. And I think long term, we'll see this be the go-to for getting data onto the Lakehouse.
Absolutely. Any other questions from the audience? I don't see any more in the chat there, but.
So one question I have, I know you covered AI BI, Unity Catalog, LakeFlow. Were there any other questions or any other announcements from Summit that that you three were particularly excited about that we didn't cover today?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's incredible, the amount of announcements that came out in Summit. The investment in the platform is huge. And there's two particular things that really come to mind, right? So serverless and Mosaic AI. When I talk serverless, everything in the platform is becoming serverless. So it comes down to Delta Life tables, that comes to your interactive clusters, that comes down to your jobs. So what that really means for the end user is simplification of the underlying platforms. It goes back to the age-old question, right? Do I buy a manual car? Do I buy something that's automatic? Right? Some people are really good at driving a manual car. They get that race car, and they're really good at working with the knobs in order to get there. But a lot of people just want, the product to manage itself, in the sense that they don't need to worry about the runtime. They don't need to worry about getting that infrastructure ready when they need it. They just want to click a button and have it work. It really comes down to simplification, and that was a huge point that came out in Summit. And then the other big component is an extremely fast growth market. Ever since AI was introduced to an application called ChatGPT, next moment I know, everybody's talking about building LLM models within their organization and having it connect to the Lakehouse. So that's where Mosaic AI comes in, right? It is directly connected to the Lakehouse. It came out of our acquisition, the Mosaic acquisition, which we now rebranded as Mosaic AI. We took all the assets and we directly built it into the platform. So you can work with your non-tabular data. You could just take a PDF and ingest it into the Lakehouse, build a Q&A chatbot using a RAG vector search. So you take, let's say you have a domain, let's say your tech support for a company that builds a widget, right? And someone calls in, has issues with the widget. You have 50 PDFs. You can take that data, you can manipulate it, tokenize it, create an embedding. And then when someone has a question on a particular topic, you can run a search, have the Databricks return the result, use any of the foundational models that are either an API on the platform. You can use an open source model, or you could connect to a proprietary model in order to whatever model fits the best for your particular use case. Let's say something doesn't fit the bill. You can fine tune that model in order to fit the use case. And let's say nothing fits the bill, and you're doing something that's really unique. You can actually pre-train your own model on the platform. We announced a agent-based framework. So let's say one vector search doesn't fit the bill, and you have another database to run the vector search. We have an agent built into the platform in order to evaluate the different steps and take user feedback to make sure that you're using that, plus LLM and the judge to evaluate how the models are performing, to make decisions on how best to optimize your solution. So it's a really big deal, and this is one of the fastest growing fields within AI since I've been around.
Yeah, absolutely. Just getting started. That's a great point, Jeff. Appreciate that.
I got two for you as well that really jumped out to me that we haven't touched on yet. I think the first one is a little bit more specific, and I actually kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier, and I'm surprised that it hasn't been a little bit of a bigger deal, because I think it's huge for people that are actually kind of managing and governing database platforms. Hand up on that one, and it's attribute-based access control in Unity Catalog. I think that kind of expanding attribute-based access control and giving that option and flexibility in addition to role-based access control is huge for larger organizations. The ability to manage security policies and access not only to kind of tables, views, and to data itself, but also to models and things like that based on tags, really helps to ease the management and support that kind of self-service to data democratization access model while still maintaining governance. So that's a huge one for me. I'm excited for that one. The other, and this is really in support of what I think is kind of still an untapped but growing market, was the data clean rooms, right? And that growing market, I think, is not only kind of cross organization data, and also data monetization, right? People are starting to treat their data as assets and treat it as an asset, not just within the organization, but as something that could actually be revenue generating and something that can help to generate insights across organizations, kind of that better together mindset. And having a secure and governed way to do that directly, kind of built directly where your data already lives without having to transfer that to an external platform, I think that's really going to accelerate the amount of use cases that companies are able to achieve and to deliver on, and to accelerate the kinds of things we can do when we group data from a couple of organizations or 2 or 3 organizations together, and can build that symbiotic relationship instead of having to move flat files or use SFTP, kind of these antiquated protocols to transfer data between organizations. So that's something I'm really excited to see evolve, and to see how Databricks can kind of be pivotal in tapping that market.
Yeah, and I think to get back to your point, we also announced Lakehouse Federation, right? So it's not just about LakeFlow's getting it in. Let's say there's a existing data store, you want to get it in to Lakehouse, do a lookup and start working with it. You can get it in very easily now with Federation. And maybe there's one of those things where you want to start working with it, but you realize long term there might be a benefit from a cost perspective to migrate it over. Just to get it in, we've lowered the barrier of entry to view your entire data state within the Lakehouse.
Yeah, absolutely. No, Lakehouse Federation's been huge. I mean, as kind of somebody who looks at a lot of migrations to the Databricks platform, right? The federation capability really helps to provide that streamlined migration path and help maintain business continuity over the course of that migration. So like you said, I think, having the ability to kind of get something in there, actually provide access to it through Databricks, even if it's not, even if it's what we might call a legacy system, and then kind of slowly replace the legacy system without the consumers ever knowing, is a huge win, and has definitely helped to make those migrations to the Databricks platform more seamless.
Yeah, no, totally. I think there's a lot happening in the generative AI state and in migration, just in general. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's probably, a good point to end on. There were a ton of announcements beyond just the main ones that we talked about here that came out of Summit, probably enough to warrant a whole nother discussion. But I guess the bottom line is that it's an exciting time for us on the Databricks platform, and just the opportunities are pretty limitless. Guys, this was a great conversation. Jeff, really want to thank you for coming on. Alex, same to you. Really appreciate you guys going through this and sharing your perspective. It's exciting stuff.
And before we sign off, just want to tease our next event with Databricks. It's coming up on September 12th in Chicago. Alex will be speaking again on how Gen AI is disrupting migrations. Jeff will be there along with some other great speakers from Databricks as well, speaking on Medallion Mesh. So if you're in Chicago, I hope you'll join us. And we will be sending out the recording along with some follow-up recap material from this discussion as well. Thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it and hope to see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.